Hello and welcome to Growing in Grace. I'm April Chappell. I'm an associate licensed counselor in the Christian mental health field. Let me ask you, who is on your emotional hook of judgment, anger, and unforgiveness? Consider who you hold a grudge toward and have not released from your emotional hook. It may even be you that's on your own hook. Once you've identified who is on your emotional hooks, then I'd like for you to rate your readiness to forgive each one on a scale of 0 to 5, with 0 being not ready at all, you still have lots of processing to do, and a 5 being you're ready to forgive today. Pause the video, make your list, and then come back. Now that you have your list and your scale, if you have any number that's not yet a 5, I would like to suggest 5 possible myths to forgiveness which might be impeding your process of making it to that 5 and being ready to forgive. One is to forgive means to forget about what happened. I disagree. I do not think that when we forgive someone that a magic eraser comes from heaven and just erases the memory out of our brain. No, we still remember, but when we remember the incident after forgiveness, it no longer carries the emotional charge and the pain that it once had before forgiveness. It's kind of like when you heal from a wound. Once that wound heals, you will have a scar, a reminder that an injury was there, but it no longer hurts like it did before it was healed. It may also be healthy to remember how people treat us so that we know what kind of boundaries to have with them. Myth number 2, I must feel like forgiving before I can forgive. According to forgiveness expert Everett Worthington, there are 2 kinds of forgiveness: decisional forgiveness and emotional forgiveness. Decisional forgiveness is where you use your will and make a choice to forgive, because as Christians, God directs us to forgive others just as freely as He has forgiven us. So you do not have to wait for a feeling to forgive. If you waited for a feeling, you might not ever do it, but you can make the decision to forgive because you know that it's right. The second part of forgiveness is the emotional forgiveness, and this is the emotions that follow forgiveness, which take longer to catch up with the decision, and that's okay. It does not mean that you have not forgiven if you're still wrestling through some hard feelings. It just means there's more processing to do. Myth number 3, to forgive means I approve of someone's negative behavior. No, extending forgiveness does not say that now what they did is suddenly okay. Someone may need to go to jail for what they did to harm you. Forgiveness is just releasing them from your hook and putting them on God's hook. It is not saying now that suddenly what they did was not wrong and it's okay. Let's look at Joseph's story in Genesis 50:20. He said to his brothers in a very direct confrontation, "You intended to harm me." So sinful behavior is just as wrong even after forgiveness. You're not excusing the behavior. Myth number 4, forgiveness equals trust. No, it does not. Forgiveness is given away freely as an act of love, but trust is earned, and it is based on the trustworthiness of the other person. You do not come back into a restored relationship automatically when you forgive. In fact, sometimes the damage to the relationship is beyond repair. So by saying that you forgive someone is not saying now I suddenly trust you again. There would need to be a rebuilding of that trust in order for that to happen. Myth number 5, I must forgive evil. Let's look at Ephesians 6:12. Which says, "For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places." I do not believe that God calls us to forgive sin and evil. God will judge the evil. The part I believe God calls us to forgive is the human element, the humanity, the weaknesses in people that allow sin and evil to operate through them. When we look up scriptures about forgiveness, we see that God calls us to forgive him or them or one another. But he does not say forgive the offense, the sin, or the evil. God is in charge of that part. You can forgive a person who allowed a spirit of abuse to operate in them and have safe harbor there in a way that caused you pain. But I don't believe that you are called to forgive a spirit of abuse or a spirit of suicide or a spirit of grief or trauma. Now that we've discussed 5 myths of forgiveness, give some thought to these myths and consider if maybe you have been believing some of them to be true. Once you have worked through the beliefs about what forgiveness actually is, then go back to your list of the people that are on your hook and reevaluate how ready you now are to forgive. I hope that the number is a little higher. I hope that this teaching will help you as you move closer and closer toward being ready to forgive and release people from your anger and judgment. I bless you as you work toward forgiveness, and I pray that you continue growing in grace.